Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for the iPhone Mini. This is a phone that I really wanted to try out, seeing as now we know that this will probably be the last iPhone Mini design, at least for a few iPhone cycles. So it's already been reported by most of the major analysts that for next year we're not going to be getting the Mini form factor anymore, so we're not getting the 5.4 inch design anymore. What we're going to get is two 6.1 inch phones and two 6.7 inch phones. Whether or not the 6.7 inch stays as 6.7 or gets slightly bigger is not yet confirmed, but basically the Mini form factor is pretty much going away. And before it did, I wanted to actually try out to see what it's actually like to live with. And I think this year, more so than any previous year, it's basically the best deal that probably we've ever had in a entry-level sort of basic iPhone. In previous years, what we've had is all of your chips essentially have been exactly the same. So obviously this year is the exception where the Pro models actually get one extra GPU core, but previously, performance-wise, you were actually better off with a standard iPhone as opposed to the Pro models, because the Pro models would always have something that was actually making it so then they're actually less powerful in terms of benchmarks. So for example, they would usually either have a higher res screen, higher pixel density, something like that. Something that would actually mean that the standard iPhone 12s, iPhone 11s would actually end up with slightly better battery life and slightly better benchmarking as a result. The main reason I actually went for this particular one this year is the fact that we've actually had a battery bump across the board. So all of the iPhones got physically bigger batteries, and I think having used obviously this as well as the 13 Pro Max, the improvements in terms of efficiency from the A15 chip are quite significant. I will do a separate video on the 13, but there will be a sort of common theme between the two models. So I will be referring to the 13 Pro Max for a lot of the aspects in terms of where I stand and my thoughts on this particular device. So we'll start off with the screen itself, and this is a 5.4 inch Retina display, and yeah, we have the slightly smaller notch just at the top. In terms of brightness, unlike the iPad Mini that I reviewed recently, I've had no complaints with regards to the screen on this particular device. Aside from the fact that I'm so used to having a much bigger iPhone, everything about this display is beautiful. It's what I'm used to essentially up until the point I got my 13 Pro Max. It's bright, it's colorful, HDR really pops. Whenever you're watching any type of content, being OLED, it is pitch black whenever you get any sort of black areas of the screen. It's just a really nice screen, and for anybody that's looking at a form factor of this sort of size, they're probably not going to be watching movies or TV series, anything like that. They're not going to be doing anything really intensive, anything that they're really invested in. It's mainly going to be social media, it's mainly going to be YouTube, maybe TikTok, Snapchat, those kind of things. Anything where you're basically going to be doing it in a sort of vertical aspect ratio, and for that this works really well. Coming on to the next sort of thing, which is obviously the size. I like the fact that obviously this does come with Face ID, so you don't have to worry about fingerprint scanner, anything like that. The buttons, everything is laid out really nicely in terms of being a single hand use, and with this you can literally reach all four corners of the screen without having to maneuver it too much. And then you still have reachability mode on this as well, so if you did want to actually just bring the top down, make it even easier, then you still have reachability mode enabled by default as well. Coming on to something that I've not really made any comparison videos. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there that you can actually go and check out, but in terms of the cameras, I did do a comparison between the 13 Pro Max and the 12 Pro Max, and whilst this isn't exactly the same camera system, essentially what you're getting here is a 12 Pro Max camera system on a iPhone 13. So you're getting a much better wide angle lens, your standard wide angle lens, and you're also getting the ultra wide as well. And most of us probably won't use it that often. It does mean that, especially for a form factor this small, you can end up with some really interesting shots, and you end up experimenting and enjoying actually creating content. And you probably won't have ever tried that with a device this small, because of the fact that you always knew that the camera system wasn't quite on par with everything else. And as I said, whilst it's not exactly the same, it is a very, very good camera system. The video, the photos, everything that comes out of it is really, really good. Obviously the ultra wide probably isn't as good, and you are missing out on the telephoto lens, which for me personally is quite a big deal, because I do actually make use of that telephoto lens, and mainly for portraits, hence why having unlimited zoom isn't really that big of an issue for me. But as I said, I will touch on that in the pro video. Coming on to the next thing I wanted to discuss, and that's the general design. I did actually mention this in the unboxing video, and I've always felt that the standard 12s, the standard 13s, they always have a more childish design about them. The glossy back, the aluminium sides, I don't see it as being a professional phone. This is something that ironically you'd actually be quite happy to rock without using a case on it, because you're not that worried about basically any damage on it. The fact that it is so small, you could just throw a glass screen protector on it. For these, you could even throw a glass screen protector on the back, and because the sides are aluminium, you're not really that bothered about bulking this up too much. And even if you do use a case, as we will see with the Zero MagSafe case, it doesn't actually make it too bulky. Obviously, because the form factor is so small to start with, it does mean that you end up with even a protected phone is still very, very small, still very easily one-handed use, and very, very pocketable as well. Okay, performance. So as I mentioned before, the fact that this comes with the A15 chip means that performance is blazing fast, as you would expect on any new iPhone. I would expect this phone to be getting at least 5 years worth of software updates, and what that means is you're essentially buying something that is very, very cheap and getting a lot for your money. Bringing that into the next sort of topic, which is price, I think this is the best value for money iPhone that you can actually buy right now. The starting price coming in at 128 gig as opposed to the previous 64 gig, for me personally, I would suggest most people out there don't actually need more than that. So you could quite easily buy the entry-level iPhone mini and use this phone for quite a few years. The performance will no doubt stay fast. It will get loads of updates. It will get obviously iOS updates for years to come, and it means that that investment that you're putting into it from the initial payment, when you actually average it out, it'll probably work out to roughly around about £100 a year if you were to buy this outright, and that for me is fantastic value for money. Okay, so I know everybody's going to ask, and obviously one of the things, the reasons why I wanted to actually check this particular one out is the fact that we have that slightly better battery life, and for me it's been relatively solid. So I didn't use this, I didn't put my SIM card in this, but what I was doing was during my testing I was actually using this alongside my 13 Pro Max. So I was trying to replicate whatever I was doing with my phone, I was then doing with this particular phone as well. And what I found is this on average was getting a roughly around maybe 5-6 hours screen on time. Now throughout the time I've had it, I didn't actually use it fully for a single day, so I actually went several days before needing to actually charge this. On a couple of occasions, because the battery was still on maybe 50-60%, I didn't see the point in putting it on charge, so I just left it. And the standby time is fantastic. That may decrease down the years, but as I've said to other people in the past as well, when you've got devices like this, as long as it's good to start with in terms of battery life, and with a device this small in particular, the people that are going to be buying this, they're not power users, so they don't necessarily need 6, 7, 8 plus hours of on-screen time or screen on time from the phone in a single day's use. They're going to be maybe 3-4 hours worth of use, and with that this is more than capable of going all day long, even with camera usage. So during my testing I was using the camera and I was doing shots in between, just testing to see what the difference was between this one and the 13 Pro Max, and for me the battery life was solid. I never felt at any point that, oh yeah, I need to either slap a case or something, battery case, or slap it on charge, or quickly top it up or anything. It was always a case of I literally had this in my pocket on some occasions where I would take this out and use it as my camera, simply because it is so compact and because the battery life is so solid. Ironically, I was actually comparing this against some action cameras, and I actually gave my daughter the choice between taking this and the Insta360 Go 2, and every single time I asked her, she would choose this. So that tells you everything that you need to know about the battery life on this, how easy it is to use, and how fun it is to use in comparison to those things for people that aren't necessarily content creators, if you like. They're not professionals. They're not doing anything for a professional reason. They're literally just making content or taking photos for the fun of it. And I think that's one thing that Apple down the years have kind of brought to the market, where a lot of other companies out there, what they'll do is they'll target certain demographics and they'll create a sort of narrative of this is what makes it better than everybody else, whereas it doesn't necessarily make it more fun. And I think that's the key takeaway for my review for this particular phone. It is the fact that it is such a fun device. I mean, you could quite happily build up a very budget setup where you buy one of these, you buy the iPad mini and maybe some AirPods or something, or if you really want to splash out, get the AirPods Max, and you've got basically a little bit of everything. Yeah, it's not going to quite do what maybe the Pro Max can do, and yeah, it's not got the ProMotion display, but for everyday usage and being able to just use this very, very easily, charge it up very, very quickly, because obviously the smaller battery means it also then charges faster as well. It's just a really, really good phone. And for anybody out there that's looking for a cheap deal as you can get on a new iPhone, previously I would have actually suggested going for the previous generation's iPhones, but the leap in battery life on this particular generation is so high and so great that I would actually say pay the extra 100, buy one of these instead if you can live with the smaller display, and you'll be much better off for it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the iPhone mini. If you do have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below. I will also have a video coming on the 13 Pro Max. That will obviously be a much longer and more in-depth video. So obviously, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified as soon as that video drops. And I'd really appreciate it if you could also give this video a thumbs up as well. Other than that, thanks very much for watching.